I'm delighted to be called a pioneer again. I used to be one when I was small. And so I thought I'll start and I'll talk a little bit about my life, but through the prism of my pioneering life as a child in communist Romania. So my talk really is about three things. It's about apples, waste, and stirring. And I promise you I'm not a composting bin. It will be hopefully more illustrative than that. So let's start with the apples. Where I grew up, we had a farm, and we had some really beautiful red apples. We were in competition with our neighbors. They had the most beautiful, golden, delicious apples. As you can see, it's whatever people like. And when I was about 6 or 7, I decided I was going to get some pocket money. Now you have to understand that communist Romania had no market economy, and really transacting of this type wasn't really to be done. So I enlisted my elder sister, and we were going to go and put ourselves in front of the factory where my mother worked with our red apples, and our neighbor turned out with his golden apples. This was my first journey into entrepreneurship, if you like. It was my attempt to sell my red apples, which I thought were the best apples, and having immediate competition from this younger boy with his golden apples. And we did relatively well, but I learned a few lessons. First of all, it doesn't matter what cards life deals you, whether they're good cards or bad cards. What you really need to be good at is to play whatever cards you're dealt better than the others. So what did I figure out really quickly was that I needed to enlist all my mother's co-workers to make sure that they were stopping by my red apples, and they made a lot of fuss that I was even there. So lesson learned, if you want to run a business, like I've ended up doing later on, you need to rely on your contacts, you need to build a network, and you need to be visible. You need to turn up and try to sell a product. Whatever the product is, and you have to be very sensitive to people's likes and dislikes, but at the end of the day, you need to be confident that your product is the better product. Now, obviously, when I was 6, I didn't think I'd end up running a business in London, bringing together all these lawyers into a new kind of pioneering law firm style service business. So I just did that, and I enjoyed my pocket money, and I went and spent it on very little because there wasn't much to buy. So that brings me really to the waste element of my life, which hopefully is not a wasted life, but I'll tell you why it's waste. And as they say, when you want something that you don't have, you need to be prepared to do something you've never done before. I'm not saying, this is a paraphrase of a great man, I'm sure. And so basically, I spotted a really beautiful, colorful top in a shop. I was about 11 years old, and in communist Romania, everything was very dark, brown, blue, gray, really miserable. There was no joy really. And this one was a really wonderful pink top, and I thought, wow, I must have that, but I didn't have any money. So I had, as I said before, in order to get something that you've never had before, you need to do something you've never done before. So I figured that one way to get my top was to go around the whole street and collect empty bottles, thus the waste. So I went collecting all these bottles, which I figured that the shop will buy off me, and therefore I will fundraise for my top, which is what I did. I almost got bitten by the biggest dog ever that I encountered. In any case, I went, and every single neighbor was quite happy to give me some jars, some empty bottles, which then I took to the shop. And so I went, and my dream came true. I did what I'd never done before, but I did buy my top, which was a massive disappointment once I acquired it, but never mind, I still was very happy. And lesson learned, I've learned that I can do something to achieve my dream. So that's really, I guess, how my life has panned out. So when I decided to study English, which I didn't study in school because I was in Transylvania, so the only language that they would teach in school was German or French. But I set my eyes on being an international journalist, so English was the best language. And in order to acquire English, I felt it was really important I should take English A-levels, which weren't being given in Romania anyway, but I was going to do that for international baccalaureate equivalent. And I realized that was a bit of a stir, because in order to be allowed to take the English A-levels, I had to campaign for myself to be allowed to sit this exam in English. And this is how I did it. Obviously, I was a budding lawyer, unbeknown to me. I went off and I read the education law, and education law very poorly drafted, because he basically said you're allowed to take the exam in any language that was being taught in the Romanian education system, and they made no provision for whether it's being taught or not in your school or in your town. So I could demand reasonably, with the education law in hand, that they should be providing a committee to test me in my English, because that was the law. So I realized that not only was I a budding campaigner, but I did get, again, my dream come true, because they did get this committee done for me, and I got my A-level in English, which was a really great result. So there you have it. The reason I'm giving you these examples are really to show you how a lot of things that you've done as you're younger might have really, if you like, laid the foundation for your future. So I ended up being an entrepreneur, having qualified in a magic law firm. I spotted a lot of wasted talent, women with children that were never coming back after having maybe two, 3 children. And I thought of a new way of engaging them and bringing them back into the profession. So that's really, in a way, my creative thinking as a child of how can I monetize waste has returned in my professional life as a lawyer. And I applied the same thinking, and I thought these people are incredibly good quality. They are absolutely at the peak of their professional life. The only thing they can't do, and actually in today's virus-ridden world, they want to work from home. Can we enable them to do that? So that's what my business did. And that's what I started with, a very simple idea of connecting these two worlds, the world of clients that needed more affordable legal support, and the world of these very often mums at home that didn't want to travel, but they were highly skilled. So that's how my business was born. Now, obviously, there's, as you say, I was a junior lawyer when I set off on this entrepreneurial journey. I didn't have contacts, but I've learned from my Apple days that if you knock on every door that you know, people will stop and they will eventually buy. They will like your red apples if you persuade them. So, in a way, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the things that you have valued maybe from your childhood and as you're growing up can come in to help you later on. When I came around to this discovery of the history of women in law and how the law prevented women from being defined as persons and therefore kept them out of the legal profession for a long time, I was really shocked, because I should have known that. I was already a qualified lawyer. I should know women were not persons by law. And I started campaigning, and I created the first 100 years to educate and change the way people understood the history of women in the legal profession. So here you are, having campaigned with the education law in Romania as a 14-year-old. I find myself yet again campaigning around equality and gender equality and just a better workplace, really, in London. So what can I say? I say this to you. I didn't say this, but I always paraphrase, right? So I'm a bit of a plagiator, I guess, from that point of view. But if you don't like something, really, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. Find the strength in what you've learned as a child and as you grow up, and you will have your dreams come true. Thanks for listening.